I am going to walk you through how to do some couching stitches in this video. And couching is a really cool technique where you generally use 2 needles and 2 different threads. So here I am going to use a pearl cotton. It's a little bit of a thicker thread, and then I'm also going to use 2 strands of 6-strand embroidery floss. And really the technique for couching is that you have 1 strand that you lay down on top of the fabric. You really don't do any stitching except to pull it out and then to tuck it in at the end. And you can kind of wind this around in any shape that you want, and then you're going to take your second piece of thread and you are going to tack down the edges. You're going to kind of come up on either side of this first thread, and you're just going to tuck a little stitch over it like this. You're basically couching it in place. And the neat thing about this is that you can weave your thread into all sorts of different shapes, and you can even use things like rope or really unique threads to add a decorative pattern to your embroidery work. So this is basically how a couching stitch works. And you can use stitches or colors rather that are matching if you want to kind of hide your couching stitches, or you can use something contrasting like I'm doing. I just want to show you how I stitch this loop. So you can get really creative with this if you want to do something different than, say, the back stitch for a certain shape. You can kind of, this loop, instead of stitching along it as you would with a straight stitch, you can use couching stitches like this instead. You can also, although it's nice to use 2 different needles for this, you can just use 1 if you want and take your needle off of this while you're waiting to tack down your thread and use it for your second thread. And then when you're done, you just take your first needle or your first thread and you kind of put it back into your fabric and finish things off. And that is the couching stitch.